So this video is a follow-up to the mega tutorial. If you haven't checked that out, it's linked in the cards. Definitely watch this video too, but that video will get you from 0 to 60 in about 60 minutes. So it's about a mile a minute. In that video, there was a couple questions that people sent in about bussing, which is definitely the most confusing aspect of the machine and why I left out one point about it in that tutorial just because I didn't want to confuse the point. In one of the bounces I did in that video, the ping pong bounces, I wound up not bussing when I did the bounce, and somebody noticed that, very astute observation, and said, well, hey, how come you didn't have to bus this? Why were you still able to record or still able to ping pong bounce? And that's what this video is about today. So the answer to the question of the video, do you actually have to bus? The question is, no, you don't. Why does the manual make this such a big point? Well, it is important to do in certain situations, and it's going to depend on your use case and what you're trying to accomplish. So one thing to talk about really quickly is an explanation of mono signals. When we have a mono signal coming into the 4-track, we have to think about it in the sense of the stereo spread. So we don't actually have an ear in the center of our forehead, but somehow this signal actually sounds like it's right directly in front of us. So a center mono signal gives the impression that we're hearing right in front of us, right in the center, right in mono, right down the middle. So I think the best way to explain it is sort of an illusion of audio, is that we have an ear on the left-hand side and an ear on the right-hand side, but we're able to hear in 360. So obviously when we hear something dead center, it's a summation of what you hear in the left and what you hear in the right ear, making it sound like it's directly in front of you. So when there's a mono signal coming into, say, track 1 here of this drum machine, the signal that's center mono is made up of a summation of a left signal and a right signal. So whatever's coming down into here is actually a summation of these two parts. When we pan it to the left, we hear the signal all the way on the left. And obviously when we pan it to the right, we hear it on the right. In the middle, therefore, it must be made up of a left signal and a right signal in order for us to have that illusion of, oh, it's in the center. So with these type of signals, these mono center signals, you don't technically have to bus them. If you don't wind up busing them, whatever signal is on the right-hand side of this mono center signal, you could think about it as like a pie with like a split down the middle. The pie that's on the left is going to be recorded, and the pie that's on the right is going to be discarded, or it won't be recorded because it's the right-hand signal. We're only going to be recording that left side of the mono center signal. So to illustrate that, I'll make a quick recording of without bussing it, and we'll see what it sounds like. Okay, so we didn't actually bus the signal, we left it in the center. So what is going to be on the recording? So strange, right? We still somehow have a signal even though we didn't bus L. And the reason is that center signal is made up of these two halves, so the left half, whether we bus it or not, is going to be recorded. The only caveat is if you don't bus it L, the signal is going to be a little bit lower overall compared to if you actually did bus it. because you're taking that full signal that's making up the two halves and bussing the entire thing to the left. So if volume is important to you, which usually it is, you'll want to bus left. Do you have to? No, as we just illustrated, we'll still get the signal there. So if you forget to do it, it's fine, but in certain situations, obviously you don't want this to occur. To illustrate, let's see what the signal sounds like when we do actually bus at L. All right, we'll turn this back to safe. We will turn this now pan to center. We'll turn this to tape so we can hear it. So if we now compare those two signals that were recorded to the tape, the bus L1 is going to be a little bit louder than the one that was left bus center. So when do you have to make sure that you do actually bus? Well, when you're recording multiple tracks, say a track 1 and track 2, let's say we had all of these on. We're going to record with the 4 channels here. We'd obviously need all these up. And let's say we wanted this to record to track 2. We wanted this one to record to track 2, these to record to track 1. So if we don't do this when we go to record, these channels will not be separated on the tape onto the tracks that we're recording to. Say you had, this was a stereo drum machine, this was a bass, and this was a guitar. So in a case like this, where you're recording multiple channels and you wanted specific channels to record to specific tracks of the tape, that's when you definitely have to bus. So let's say we didn't bus these channels and we left them all bus center mono. What will happen is all of these channels will be recorded to both tracks 1 and 2, and there won't be any separation. So that's a case where busing is super important when you're recording multiple channels to different tracks of the tape. So make sure to always bus stereo signals to maintain a stereo spread and to maintain the track separation. If you forget to bus mono signals, that's okay. As we've demonstrated, they're just going to be a little bit lower in the mix, or the signal won't be as loud as if you had busted L versus, keeping it bus center. Probably the best thing to do then is to just record mono signals direct if you're directly in that channel, because then you won't have to worry about busing. But if we're going to be busing and you want to make sure that you have the loudest signal possible, make sure you bus L. To bus or not to bus, that is the question. If you have any questions about this video, leave them in the comments below, and I'd be curious to hear what you think. If you've had any tales of busing or tales of confusion when it comes to busing. I know that this is always a really confusing topic for myself, so I never understood why I would record things and they would still be recorded even though I hadn't bussed the tracks, and then you get into this gray area of, well, do I even have to bus because it's obviously still recording? Is there something broken on my machine? Is the routing messed up? Like, what is going on? So I hope that explanation of center mono signals helps. It's not really something I ever thought about too deeply until I had to make this video, Hearing and sound is really fascinating topic, and how our ears really dictate where we move our head and body and eyes even, because it allows us to see in 360 degrees. But I'm going to stop there before I get too big brain about this. But yeah, so I just want to thank Steve, Jody, Patty, Will, Matt, and Andrew for all their support over on patreon.com, and all my patrons at patreon.com. Thank you so much for helping support these videos. And if you want to support videos like this, you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/424recording. There's some sneak peeks. I'm going to be hopefully doing some vlogs soon. There's songs and tracks and writing. I'm doing a lot of blogging over there, so if that's something that's interesting to you, check me out at Patreon. So, as always, Godspeed, my friends. The sun is coming out. I'm getting blown out here. Oh well, I guess it's time to go. But make sure you do something you want to do today, all right?